Hello people and welcome to today's educational video of the Entrant YouTube channel, and today we will be studying about the recent Hong Kong protest and the involvement of China. On the next slide we will be covering the contents that are to be discussed: history of Hong Kong and the protest, reasons for the protest, the difference between Hong Kong and China, the Hong Kong extradition law, and the protesters' demand. In the first slide, we will be covering the origin and history of Hong Kong and this protest. Public protest in Hong Kong can be dated back to the British colonial rule in the late 1800s, when China lost a series of war to Britain and ended up ceding Hong Kong for a period of 99 years. So there was a war between Britain and China in those days, and in those war, China had lost against Britain. So in according to the defeat of their battle against Britain, China had to surrender a part of their mainland, that is called Hong Kong, to these Britishers. And the British had the autonomy or the power over Hong Kong for a period of 99 years. Hong Kong remained as a Britain colony until 1997 and was given back to China under the special agreement it made on the part of Hong Kong. The statement guaranteed that Hong Kong would have high degree of autonomy as well as democratic freedom like right to vote, freedom of speech, freedom of press, etc. And it was different for citizens of Hong Kong from the authoritative mainland China. So in the agreement between Britain and China, Britain had emphasized that Hong Kong should be given special autonomy in China. Autonomy means the power to decide and control Hong Kong's internal matters, and China should not involve in the internal matters and other issues of Hong Kong. And Hong Kong people, they followed a system of democracy like India. For example, the right to speech, right to vote, etc. And moreover, it was different for the from Hong Kong and Chinese people, because Chinese people were under the authoritative communist rule where they were not given or they did not enjoy the freedom of speech or any other fundamental rights, etc. And even now, if you see about Hong Kong in any other YouTube or newspaper, you can see there is a strong influence of British culture in the Hong Kong culture. But according to the agreement between Britain and China, one country, two systems wouldn't last forever, as China expects Hong Kong to be a part of China in 2004. So the agreement between Britain and China can be named as one country and two system. Technically, Hong Kong belongs to China, but Hong Kong at the same time, Hong Kong follows a separate system of operation or system of governance that is different from China. And China expects Hong Kong to be a part in 2024 because Hong Kong is a very rich place, and it's a place known for its tall skyscrapers, infrastructure, technology, and it's a hub for traders and investors. Now, if you see in the picture over here, you can see two pictures. The top one talks about shows you about the Hong Kong protest that happened, and the second picture shows you the war between the Britain and the Chinese people. This is just an portrait of some famous painter. Yeah. And on the next slide, we'll be seeing the reasons for the protest. The main problem is that China is impatient on waiting for the deal to get expired. Under the rule of Chinese leader Xi Jinping, had arrested pro-democratic leaders of Hong Kong. China's proposed new national security law, which critics believe could be used to crack down rights and political activists, fear of excessive Chinese interference in the internal matters of Hong Kong, restriction on the freedoms enjoyed by the Hong Kongers, many distrust in the legal system of mainland China. China's newly proposed extradition bill. So these are the reasons why it has triggered the massive protest in Hong Kong against China. So over here we can see China is very impatient because China doesn't want to wait until 2047. So they want Hong Kong to be a part of China immediately. and the many rules that have been implemented by China in Hong Kong had created a fear among the Hong Kongers, because as China is an example of an communist authoritative, the Hong Kongers fear that these laws could hamper their freedom of speech and all other democratic rights they used to enjoy before. Now, next we can see the difference between Hong Kong and China. So here we'll be discussing the difference of culture, the political system between Hong Kong and China. Hong Kong is a special administrative region of China, semi-autonomous region of China. Hong Kong operates using a different system and issues its own currency, the Hong Kong dollar. Passports, ID card, extra. Also maintains a separate immigration agency. Traveling from Hong Kong to China now requires you to cross a border, exiting Hong Kong at one checkpoint, then crossing to a neutral room and entering China at another checkpoint. Hong Kongers enjoy more freedom and human rights than their Chinese mainland counterparts. They had adopted a Western culture unlike China, and the ideas of freedom, liberal democracy, and capitalism are very much prevalent amongst the Hong Kongers. So in the picture you can see the picture actually sums up the entire points. So you can see that China as an symbol of authoritarianism, and Hong Kong is someone who has the Western ideology, culture, and also promotes liberal democracy. And we can see here it's a Hong Kong protester, and China is trying to crush it, but Hong Kong over here is trying to defend the protester. So this picture actually helps you to summarize the entire points over here. Now coming to the next point, it's the main issue, that the Hong Kong extradition law. So this is a law that actually triggered the massive protest in Hong Kong for several weeks. The Hong Kong extradition law would allow the extradition of suspects criminals to mainland China for the first time. Supporters say that the amendments are key to ensuring the city does not become a criminal refuge, but critics argue that it will use the law to extradite political opponents and others to China where their legal protections cannot be guaranteed. So, let's see the definition of the extradition law. So, extradition law means that it is the formal process of one state surrendering an individual to another state for prosecution or punishment for crimes committed in the requesting country's jurisdiction. So it means that, for example, if a Chinese national, if he commits a crime in China and goes to Hong Kong for hiding, the Chinese government has no right to arrest or to go behind him, because Hong Kong has a different system of governments and also operation. So the Chinese government wants Hong Kong to sign this agreement in which it allows the Chinese officials to crack down the suspects that are hiding in Hong Kong. And as all issues, we can see that every issues have a positive and negative impact. So the positive side, which many people say that this amendments helps the Hong Kong to be a safe haven and not a refuge for all the criminals. Now other critics argue that this will use China as an tool to suppress the political opponents and also uh, many democratic rights that the Hong Kongers uphold. And one more thing is that China, as a authoritative country, does not respect and have basic human laws or human rights ideas. And this is the main law that actually had triggered the protest in Hong Kong. Now let's see what the protesters actually demand, or what are the idea or the message that is conveyed by the protesters to the Chinese government. Some protesters have addressed or adopted that motto: five demands, not one less. These are the number one demand they demand is that the protesters should not be categorized as riot, amnesty for arrested protesters, an independent inquiry into alleged police brutality, implementation of complete universal suffrage. The fifth demand, the withdrawal of the bill, has already been met. Protesters supporting the Hong Kong movement have spread across the globe, with rallies taking place in UK, France, US, Canada, and Australia. In many cases, people supporting the demonstration were confronted by pro Beijing rallies. So, over here, you can see that there were a lot of police brutality against the Hong Kong protesters. Many were sprayed pepper gas, and many were beaten. And the movement was pretty much violent because the Chinese officials or the policemen used a lot of force against the hundreds of Hong Kong protesters. And we can see that Western countries like UK, France, US, etc., are all necessarily anti China because they all uphold the value of capitalism and are against communism. So they have taken the opportunity of Hong Kong as a tool to counter against China. And China has been threatened that Hong Kong would be a separate independent nation and all these countries would support Hong Kong as a country in future. Because obviously Hong Kong was an colony of Britain and Hong Kong shares the similar ideas and the political structure of these countries, that is the UK, France, etc. And there were a lot of fights between the pro Beijing people, which means the people who support the Chinese government action, versus the Hong Kongers who were against the new bill. So you can say the entire protest was actually violent, and this continued to go for a lot of weeks in Hong Kong. And one more thing is that the protesters who were arrested were denied basic human rights and were actually brutally tortured by the Chinese police. So the demands over say is the safeguarding of these arrested people and for giving them basic human rights and also protection against the Chinese brutality. Now we come to the last slide, that is a basic idea to give you an idea of what is the difference between the Hong Kong flag and also the map of Hong Kong. So you can see the first one is the flag of Hong Kong and second one is the flag of China. Hong Kong has its own currency, guys, its own passport, flag, etc. And it's also a very rich place for trade and tourism. And over here you can see the map of Hong Kong. So this is the mainland China and this part is the Hong Kong region. You can see in the globe over here China and Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very small country and its main trade goes with ocean and it's next to the sea, and there's a lot of naval trade agreements that happen in Hong Kong. So this is the map provided here. So guys, I hope you all enjoyed watching the video and also attained a lot of knowledge regarding the Hong Kong protest and China. For more such videos, please subscribe, press the bell button and also share the video. If you guys have any doubts regarding the topic, please comment down on the comment section below and feel free to correct my video or any sort of clarification that is supposed to be made. So, thanking you all and God bless.